It's time for another lap around the track with all the latest in motorsports interviews. Sometimes we get bent feelings, but we can't wait for the Bent Fender Podcast with your hosts, Nathan Conway and Wes Llewellyn.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Bent Fender Podcast. I'm Nathan Porkchop Conway. With me, as always, is Wes, the Iron Man Llewellyn. It's important, man, because you've been doing work as it is, and for quite a little while here the last whole weekend since we've recorded last. And big AMS show, Land of Leakin', 4 nights. You did them all 4, man.
Well, it's funny you give me a new nickname because my traveling companion and I guess maybe benefactor, Gabriel Kirtley with Fairview IT Management, filled your shoes in pretty well and gave me a new nickname every day based on what I was doing at the track. So
Are those safe for work?
They are. I was the sledgehammer, the mud scraper, the body work. I think I was body work at one point in time.
Body work.
Yeah. So
you're doing some body work here lately since you've rejoined the gym.
I have. That's for a different podcast. But no. Yeah, I did. Gabriel offered to let me come with them to the AMS show, and I warned him beforehand. I was like, I might talk like I know something about cars, but I can't work on them, so I don't want to be in your way. And he was like, well, just come on and you can learn. So I spent 4 days learning how to be on a pit crew on a modified. I got to put about 14 million miles on my shoes.
Did you throw them away?
No.
Still running?
They are. I have a multitude of color of mud in one of the pockets of my cargo shorts because all the mud at those tracks was different.
That's right.
It was all different colors of mud. So that was pretty cool.
It's all different colors of clay.
No, I don't know if this was clay. I mean, it was something. I think one of the tracks was just horse manure.
It might have been.
It was black. That was at Fairbury, actually.
Right.
And
it's completely different.
Standing at the pit stands at Fairbury, and if anybody's been to the pit stands there, you're right in the turns 3 and 4, and as those mods sling around that curve, that corner, it was like shrapnel coming off the track as it's just slinging all the dirt and everything at you. So, but no, it was a great time. It was a fantastic time. I got to meet a ton of new modified drivers. I got to meet a ton of new late model drivers, street stock drivers. It was a great time. It was hard work. I have a pretty deep gouge on my hand. It didn't require stitches or anything. Maybe I'm exaggerating.
Probably.
Maybe it's a paper cut.
That's probably what it is.
No, it's I did bleed for Gabe's car on my hand and my leg. I cut my leg open too. But I told him, I said, buddy, I've given you my sweat and you've gotten my blood. I said, let's not give you any tears this weekend. How's that? So it was a great time. It was a cool show, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do it.
Well, it was cool, man, because and I tell you why. And not just that you got to go up there to go to all the different places and see the different tracks that you have obviously never been to.
I have not,
and never really worked a pit, especially on a open wheel modified.
Well, I mean, we went to Clarksville with Blaze Melton way back at the beginning of the season.
Right.
And I took up a lot more space than I helped.
But you did learn a few things.
I tried this time with Gabriel to actually help as much as I could.
Right.
So, I just stood back and watched the first day and, picked up some tools and handed them tools and stuff. And then by Sunday, I'm yanking tires off. I'm checking air pressures, bending, knocking dents back into the car. We did a lot of body work on the nose. So I did what I could, and I think I learned a lot, and I hope they felt my contribution was worth my trip up there.
Well, that was the thing, man. Not just saying that you got to go and you got to help in the pits and things like that, but for this show, for what we're doing here, it's a big deal because, kind of the local market right here, but we were able to take this show, and, you were able to take this show and go 3 and 4 hours away to where, racing is still very, very big, and got to get all those interviews, especially with Kenny Wallace. That was cool. It was a cool deal. Got to kind of eat dinner with him one night.
Well, twice. He He was at a Steak and Shake with us twice. First night he came in, saw us, and hey, in Kenny Wallace fashion, and he was just excited to be there. And then the next night we were like, Kenny Wallace, stop stalking us. It's not cool anymore.
Yeah.
No, he again came in, talked to us and had a great time. And he's just a regular dude. There were NASCAR drivers there during this series. Right. You had Kenny Wallace, you had David Strimmy, and you had Justin Haley. I didn't get an opportunity to talk to David Strimmy, and he was just, every time I went by their trailer, it was just so busy. Right. And he's got his line of lethal chassis that
he does.
They're sharp-looking cars. Mm-hmm. If you've not seen one of his lethal chassis, they are good-looking cars. I talked to Alan Weiser and Mark Anderson, and they both run lethal chassis, and they're good-looking cars.
Well, you did get to meet another guy, relatively unknown, I think.
He's new on the circuit.
New on the circuit was what was his name? Mike.
I believe his last name was Harrison.
Mike Harrison.
Mike Harrison. Yeah, he's
a new guy.
He's not done much.
Yeah, just started out, I think. And no.
So no. Okay. Well,
yeah, I heard the story. I'm going to let you tell. But what I heard was
listeners need to hear the story.
Yeah, it was just pretty funny.
People that listen to the podcast for any given length of time know that I'm new to motorsports and I'm new to the scene and everything. And for the most part, I do a lot with following local motorsports, which for us, local motorsports is Western Kentucky, mm-hmm. and not much further outside of that. So, Thursday, day one, first day of the series, my third interview that day, I think, the very third interview. And I mean, if you listen to Thursday compared to Sunday, Thursday I'm nervous. It's all these new guys that I don't know, so it doesn't flow as well. So if I see a driver that I don't know who they are, which most of these drivers I did not, I will step into their pit and ask them, what's your name? And if it's a car, well, and especially with mods, what class do you drive? Because you can't look at a mod, for the most part, and determine if it's a E mod, B mod, or an A mod. So sure. There's not a lot of difference. So I'll ask, what's your name? What class do you run? So I stepped into this pit, said, hey man, what's your name? Mike Harrison. Okay, cool, and go through and do the interview. And even I just let, you listen to the interview just now. I'm even like, hey, man, so super naive and everything. How's your season going? And at this point in time, I should have known
quite well
that he was, 6-time, national champion and had 26 feature wins under his belt. I should have known that.
This season alone.
Right. So, and he says, I really don't know how my season's going. I've got some wins. The boys keep up with those. I think it might be 25. So, and I'm like, oh. And then as the weekend progressed and he started dominating the series and continued to dominate the series, I was like, maybe I should have known who he was.
Well, that was pretty funny a little bit. I mean, that's not we're laughing at you. It's just funny that
feel free to laugh at me. It's I don't mind. It's just one of those things, man.
Well, the cool thing about it was, and everyone knows Mike Harrison pretty much that follows open wheel modified racing in at least the Midwest or in this area. But 4-night sweep, Thursday through Sunday, took it all.
$20,000 for 4 days work.
Right. Plus the contingencies and the lap leaders.
Right.
So.
And he's watching him drive. It's just it's kind of awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
Because I think that man absolutely is fearless, and I think that he just does it.
Right.
Because the way that he would sling the car around the corners, the way that he would ricochet off the walls and just keep going, it was just a sight to see. And on top of and it was cool interviewing Justin Haley and Kenny Wallace because they do have some star power. And I like that. But, Kenny's as down-to-earth as they come.
Yep.
But I got to meet a lot of drivers that I've looked up to. I got to meet Tate Davenport. I got to meet Lucas Lee. I got to meet, all these guys, Ray Bollinger. And they're just great guys. And not even the guys that have, any kind of notoriety to their name. I got to meet Matt Mitchell, who's a local mod driver in Fairbury. Mm-hmm. I got to meet, street stock guys, and it's just any time that people take their time to come on the show and talk to us, I am grateful and thankful for their time. And I hope that I express that, and I hope that people understand that without them, without these opportunities, I wouldn't be able to do this. And I'm very humble, exceedingly humble most of the time, no, all the time, about getting to meet these guys and have these interviews. So,
well, that's the cool thing about it, man. Is just being able to go up there and talk to them, and and you'll find out. I mean, of course, there's a few, there's a few around every track that's going to be, walking on air, and that just you really can't do anything about that. But
well, and I think one of the things that I did run into, and it only happened twice. I had some drivers that I asked if they would like to come on and talk about the program and everything, and they absolutely refused. Yeah. And I just don't understand that. Maybe if you're shy, I kind of get it. But, it's two dudes talking about the thing that you love doing.
that you're there to do.
And it's racing, And for the drivers, it gets them the opportunity to get their sponsors out, get their racing program out, and have a little bit bigger of a platform to share their successes with.
Right.
So, I just don't – I don't understand why you would turn down that opportunity.
Yeah. Even just for a couple of minutes, just 2 minutes.
And the I think 2 or 3 minutes was the shortest interview that I got. But for the most part, once I got into it and I got comfortable, the interviews just flowed.
Yeah.
I talked to Lucas Lee for 15 minutes. I talked to Tate Davenport for almost 15 minutes.
Right.
So.
Well, that was a cool thing about it. And you got to go back around, just like I told you to do before you left, and make sure you get our buddy Rich Dawson. Because we did, unfortunately, through no fault of our own, lost his audio whenever they came to Windy Hollow.
And I explained to him, it was brand new equipment. Just like if you get a brand new car, or you're learning how to, testing and tuning.
Yep.
So, and he was understanding, and he gave me a fantastic interview. He was the first interview that I did when we got to Farmer City. So
the second time.
Yes. So
you gave a fantastic interview the first time, but you just weren't able to hear it.
Right, and he's like, it really sucks that I wasted my chance to pop your cherry back then, and that's on the interview. He actually said that. It was funny. So.
It's a family show, Rich.
Well,
man, golly.
Well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's great, and got to hang out with Barry Barnes, and take some lessons from him on how to be a better interviewer and just a fan of the sport.
That dude gets fired up, man. He gets excited,
and it's fun. It's fun. So.
Well,
yeah. What's been going on in your world?
Well, not a whole lot, but I'll tell you in just a second. But make sure you guys go back and check out those episodes. There's 4 episodes. There's 4 episodes of the Quick Six, and they were from the 4-night AMS show, and they're sitting there. And for your listening pleasure, they're already out. So just go check them out in the archives, which they're still fairly new, but
they are.
So make sure you guys do that. Now, moving on a little bit before we get to our guest, which we probably ought to make sure we don't take any more of his time. But Conway Racing Team, man, making some strides, coming back a little bit. We've got hopefully, fingers crossed, the motor issues dialed in, taken care of. We were able to get the car running quite well, and we're going to try to get that out at the Race On Memorial at Windy Hollow Speedway coming up this weekend. So
put a new set of headers on.
No headers.
The heads. I'm sorry. It was in my head what you had done. You
spent 4 days in the pits and don't know a cylinder head from a. I'm just kidding.
No, you put a new set of heads on.
Yeah.
Got the valve springs. A new set of valve springs.
Yeah, I had to change those a little bit. That was me and Chris spent a little time doing that the other day.
Got a new starter.
I did get a new starter thanks to Gabriel Kirtley.
Benefactor.
Yep, the Benefactor.
That's his nickname, Gabriel.
He's our benefactor, so don't try to take him.
Gabriel the Benefactor Curley.
Yeah, I'm sure he loves that.
Oh, sure.
But it was a cool thing, man. We got the car running real well. Got to drive it a little bit up and down the road and kind of test it out. It was on private roads. It wasn't on a highway. But it was pretty fun, man. I kind of scared Chris a little bit with it. So I'm really hoping it's going to be a good deal, man. They got the benefit cook for the Henry family coming up Saturday, so we're going to try to take it out and let everyone see it. It's going to be on display there. So it's not a car show, but it's an opportunity to get your car out and let people see it. So that's what we want to do, and we want to support Billy Egler and Angie Baird and all the people involved with that. So it's a pretty cool deal to be able to bring it out. Hopefully it doesn't rain. That's what I'm hoping, and get it out of Windy Hollow Speedway for the Race On Memorial. That's a pretty big deal out there, and a lot of guys have gone on, and a lot of people miss them. So
while you're doing the thing and you're racing and you're representing and hopefully winning.
That's with an N apostrophe.
Hopefully winning.
That's with an N apostrophe, and I like that.
That cruiser feature. Hopefully you're going to
B main, A main. I don't know.
Hopefully you're going to do that. I will be at Windy Hollow on Sunday for the Race On Memorial, doing a special memorial episode of the. I'm not going to call it the Quick Six. It'll be Ben Fender podcast.
Yeah, it will.
But I'm going to talk to drivers, fans, staff.
I think you might hear me on that episode maybe once or twice.
We will be talking about what's going on in these people's lives and why this event means as much as it does to people.
Right.
And if they have memories they want to share, then we want them to share them. And I will make sure that I have an extra large box of Kleenex in case people need it. So
and that's not a joke because it's sentimental to a lot of
it
people,
is.
and that's a big deal. So that's going to be a good deal, man. And that companion episode will air after the race.
It will
at some point. So going to be a cool deal.
I'll probably get it out as soon as I can, just so that way it's as close to the race as we can get it to be.
Right. Well, let's talk about today. Got Erick Wettstain coming on. Had a kind of a storied career through racing. He's been in it a long time. His father, long-time racer, especially in the old super late models at Central Park Raceway and various tracks around here. He absolutely loves motorsports, man. I mean, He just does, and our biggest fan. So that's a cool thing, man. And he's agreed to come on the show, and not that we really had to twist his arm or anything. I know we say it a lot, but
just had to make sure his schedule was clear. He's got a new baby.
He does have a new baby and new fiance.
Yep.
Fiancé.
Yeah, baby's still tiny.
Baby is still tiny.
So
fiance is grown up.
She's a grown up.
Yes, she is a woman.
She's a woman.
Yeah. So anyway, done everything. Worked at Brew Coast and Shelter Motorsports. Has been around some ARCA stuff and helped some of the hot dogs that we have had around here. So it's going to be a cool deal, man, having him come on the show. Now, for us, we probably ought to do the house cleaning real quick here. Our sponsors on the race car and on the podcast are Glenstone Construction, Martin's Towing and Recovery, Fairview IT Management, Chad's Barbershop, Slingshot Media, Red Star Graphics, Mach 5 Race Cars Parts and Carts. Who else? Lori Kimball Home Realty.
Yep.
High Octane Racewear and Graphics and Apparel.
Yep.
And the great. I don't know what I was trying to say with High Octane there, but also Willie's Carburetor and Dyno Shop. So we appreciate everyone to come on here and being a part of the podcast and sponsoring us. And we would love to have you guys sponsor anybody that wants to. It's fairly affordable. It's very affordable actually, and it's worth your while. I think because you were talking to a couple of our sponsors the other day, and lots of increased traffic, right?
Yes, Lori Kimball has noticed a huge increase in the traffic on her Facebook page, and hopefully she can start converting those additional hits into leads, into commissions in her pocket.
That's right.
So
it's got to start somewhere, guys. So you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Podcast Addict, Podbean.com, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn. Where else? iHeartRadio. YouTube. That it?
Yep. I think anywhere you can get a podcast.
I don't think there's any place else to put it.
Maybe on a refrigerator magnet.
All right. Well, hopefully our new Bent Fender shirts are coming in, and they are currently a host and wife, I guess, since Sarah's going to have one, but host only edition.
Sure.
But we are definitely.
Once you see them, you're going to want them.
Well, we'd be open to selling them.
We will. We just wanted to get ours and see how they looked. And,
sure.
If we're super happy with them, which we should be, then we will open that up to...
Maybe we'll have a quick 6-1 too.
Maybe. We'll open it up to you guys. And if you guys would like some merch, it's a different ordering process than the Conway Racing Team shirts are. This is a digital printing, so there's no minimum. So if you are out there listening and you see us at a show or something and you want the shirt and you're just a one person, then
one person.
Yep, we can absolutely get that ordered for you.
Yeah. So it'd be a cool thing.
I think so.
Shorter turnaround on those, I think. So.
Yeah, super short.
Yeah. So. Well, buddy, I think we ought to. He's pacing the floor over there.
He is.
I think we ought to get to Erick Wettstain and have him come on here and tell us some good stories.
We will do that, and we're going to throw it to the first commercial break, and on the other side of that, we will have Erick.
All right, we'll see you in a minute.
breakdowns, collisions, lockouts. Things can happen on the road at any time. That's why you should call Martin's Towing and Recovery. We have years of experience to help you in your time of need. Within minutes, we can provide you towing services, jump starts, gas refills, and even unlock services to get you back on the road. We are proud to be able to provide honest, dependable service that our customers have come to trust. Please give us a call 24 hours a day at 270-929-0718 for all your automotive emergency needs.
And here we are back from the break, sitting here with Erick Wettstain. Erick, longtime member of the motorsports community, especially, when you were a young child, I guess, with your dad racing, and coming on the show. First time we've had you. You've been here several times while we recorded, but never got on the show with us. So we appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed everything y'all been doing, and it's pretty fun. I think it's going to be fun to talk and tell some stories.
Well, that's what it's all about, man, and that's something that's important to us, is getting those stories out there. And we know you got a million of them, man. You love to jaw just like we do, and we hung out several times and talked about the podcast and different things. And you're one of the people that, man, when as soon as it uploads, he's on it.
And it's I'm here this time too.
Yeah, Wes is here.
I'm here because this is it's kind of an unconventional episode, but it's been a long time coming, and we've leaned on you quite a bit. We've asked opinions, we've asked what should we do with this, and get guest ideas, and you're as much a part of this family as Nathan is. So
yeah, I mean, especially whenever I first heard about y'all, I'm excited, and still am. Every Friday I look forward to the episodes and try to share them on Facebook and all that good stuff. And a bunch of the guys at work have began being fans. I don't know if they.
I think it's because you're just listening to it and you're like, well, you ain't got no choice, so you might as well like it.
Yeah, pretty much. I take my little Bluetooth speaker with me and set it on a barrel in the middle of the road while we're working. And
they all see it come out and they're like, son of a gun, here we go again.
Yeah, pretty much. And which one of the guys, Richard Phillips, I worked with him. He helped on Kevin Burt's car back in the day. I think a little bit with Jimmy Westerfield and stuff like that. And
we know that guy.
So yeah, I think fairly well known. I'm not really sure, but
yeah.
So he kind of got a kick out of it whenever I'd bring it out, and I mean, I let him. I think I even went back on a few episodes, and we just listened to episodes all day long. So yeah, he enjoyed it, or at least he didn't tell me to turn it off. So.
Well, the cool thing about it is, man, and you've talked to us several times, and when we tell people on these episodes and we say, hey, give us some feedback, man. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like, Well, you're the guy. You're one of the guys that's done that. I mean, you're like the only guy, I think, that's done it.
but not just that. People have come to him
with
feedback,
yeah.
And they've given Erick feedback, and then he's like, hey, guys, they really think you suck, and you need to find a new sport to cover, maybe chess.
Yeah, we just cover chess. It's the hard-hitting action of chess.
Yeah, that's happened a couple times, but for the most part, I just screen those conversations and
we can't please them all.
and don't send them to you.
Yeah, and well, we appreciate that. Just don't hurt our baby feelings, because
I have a lot of those.
Wes gets tore up pretty easy,
yeah,
man.
I do.
So, man, but we do appreciate it, and you've talked to us several times, and we had right when the show was in the infancy, you started listening, and been with us from the beginning, and telling us to be like, man, I've listened to every episode like 4 times, man. I love it. I wish you guys would make an episode every day. I was like, well, we'd love to, man. We just,
Yeah, I know. At one point it was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to go back and listen to Jimmy's again. That'll be like number 5 or 6 times. And,
you might have missed something.
Yeah, I never know. I mean, it's kind of like watching Forrest Gump. If it's it's never a bad thing. But,
so does that mean
listen to Jimmy's episode is like watching Forrest Gump? No, come on.
Wait, so Nathan could be Forrest.
We don't want Jimmy to get mad.
I'll be Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah.
And Jimmy can be Bubba?
Is he Bubba Gump?
Bubba Gump?
I don't know. Blake could be Bubba Gump.
He could.
But Blake, he'd be a good Bubba. Maybe.
We need Jimmy to be somebody else.
Jimmy could just be Jenny.
No, he's Jenny.
No, he's Bear Bryant.
Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah, he'd be Lieutenant.
Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Diane. No, Jimmy's gonna give
Lieutenant
us a butt
Dan, you
whooping.
ain't got no legs.
Yeah, no.
No,
He's gonna give us a butt whooping, man.
and even Eric and I have talked about the show, and there was one time I said it was around episode 20, around the greatest hits episode. I said, when I had to go back and listen to those episodes to record this, I just realized how much over 19 episodes we had changed and grown. And he was like, well, let me check that out for you. Let me just test your theory. And he went back and he goes, Jesus, man, those first couple episodes were shit.
Yeah, they were. They're rough, man.
Yeah, I will say, Nathan, you've done a lot better. The first few episodes, if you go back and listen to them now, and sorry, Blaze, and those guys. Blake, yeah. Those episodes, they're hard to get through now. Now everything seems to flow real well. Whenever I do get a wild hair and I go back and listen to them, I hit that fast forward 30 seconds button a lot.
Well, and
get through me talking to get to what the guest said.
And we've promised them all, and it is a sincere, heartfelt promise. They get to come back and do it again.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
You owe that to Blake and Blaze, that's for sure. But no, it has. Y'all are doing a great thing, and it continues to get better. And there's been a lot of people on here that I don't know, but then after the episode, it's to an extent I feel like I know them or relate to them or whatever. And I know I wore y'all out for a while with the whenever doing like track interviews, some similar to the Quick Six, and I mean I'm not one to take any credit, but I think I was the first one to mention real lighthearted questions and just real quick questions, and I might even mention keep it to 5 or 6.
No, you were a huge inspiration behind the Pit Interview Show. You pushed us in that direction, and we're like, we're going to go there. It's just we have to be able to afford the equipment. And once we did, then I know I talked to you about it a lot, and you did help formulate the style. So, take credit where credit's due, man. I mean, we appreciate it.
I will say I do remember a message, and I could probably pull it up and find it, but I remember a message.
Why do you save all these messages?
He's keeping the receipts.
And
apparently.
Whenever y'all go big, I want my cut.
Yeah.
But no, I remember.
We want our cut, too.
I remember I was talking to Wes, and we were talking about. I sent I think probably 20 questions or something.
You did.
For hoping y'all would pick. And Wes, he's like, nobody cares what a driver's favorite style track is, and I jumped all over him.
Wait a minute,
and that shows at that time that showed my naivety about all this stuff. Naivete. That I was like, our fans don't care about that stuff. Yes, they do.
And I jumped all over him and gave an explanation of why I like this style track over this style track and all this, and he was like, oh.
Well,
okay. Well, maybe you and Nathan might have been right.
Well, and I have eaten. I don't know how much crow I've eaten. It's a lot. But I tell Nathan constantly, I'm like, you deal with the driving and the racing stuff of it. I'll handle the technology because you're right and I'm wrong. It happens more times than you realize.
Just saying, that question, I think it's been on every single Quick Six since it started, and I was like, yeah, I came up with that one.
That's right. Well, I did contact you too. We had some questions, and some of the ones, and I was like, what do you think we can add to this? And hobbies wise, I didn't know about that one, but a lot of drivers have different hobbies and things that they do.
Right.
They hunt during the winter and this and that, but especially, what type of tracks do you like to drive on? What suits your driving style the best? Do you like, real high bank? Do you like a flatter track? Do you like, tacky, dry slick, whatever. So, it's a big thing, and I think it's been received well, especially the Quick Six has been received well by everybody that we've been doing. But, go out on a limb, I'd say now we can kind of safely say after, 3,100 plus downloads, you told me today, Wes,
yep,
I think the podcast has been very well received, and I think we're building a lot of momentum.
Well, and I think, not, getting off too much on this.
No.
But as far as downloads go, the Cedar Ridge episode of the Quick Six has been the most downloaded episode of any of them all. I think this morning when I looked at it, it was up to 215 downloads, and it got 199 of those in the first 2 days it was on the internet.
Yeah, that one was a good one, and I was really hoping this weekend with the AMS Modified Mania or this weekend. I was hoping it was all going to be on one episode, and then I saw it and it's on 4 different ones. I was like, oh man.
Well,
but I'm still listening to them all, so you know.
Well, and I broke them up into 4 episodes because I wanted to give each track their due. You know, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just lumping it all together, and that way the drivers that I interviewed at those tracks specifically, you know, with Matt Mitchell at Fairbury, you know, he's deep in the middle of that episode. I didn't want to have to, I mean, I want him to listen to them all, but I didn't want him to have to go through 31 interviews to find his.
Right.
So.
Oh, I understand why you did it, but just for the ease of me out working in the garage,
and you have to click it.
Doing the woodwork, having to go scroll through.
I will consult you from now on the programming.
No,
Eric, how do you want me to do this episode?
He's the program director now.
I figured out with my Bluetooth speaker and all that, you have to start at the top. And even if you have to start with the most recent and let it work backwards, and then you don't have to push any buttons because it just it rolls right into the next episode.
Right. Well, maybe you should invest in a new Bluetooth speaker because apparently yours is it's a communist or something.
It might be my $10 phone. I don't know, but either way,
I didn't even know you could listen to podcasts on a flip phone.
Well,
you have to dial it up.
Yeah,
literally dial it.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
that's an old texting joke for you young kids out there.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't know how to
I'm a little bit past the flip phone. I had the good phones, and then now I've realized that the junk phones work just as good, and I can break those just like any of them. So,
well, Eric, I want you to take me back a little bit, man, and as we're doing a lot of horn tooting here with all 3 of us, but. We're doing a lot of tooting for something, but take us back to the beginning, man, and how it all started. You know, when you got into racing, or well, not when you inserted yourself into it, but started out.
Well, I don't think I really had a choice. I was born into it. Dad, you know, James Wettstain, he local legend, or at least he thinks so. And no, he ran the super streets back in the day, and I mean, from as far back as I can remember, I mean, racetracks, and I mean, that's where I thought that's what all kids did on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights was right. You go to the racetrack and, you know, watch your dad race. I think whenever I got in elementary school, I realized that most kids have never, or a lot of kids have never even been to a race, but
which is sad.
It is, but no, I McHenry, Morton's Gap, Paducah, you know, all the tracks in this area, Dad raced there for as long as, you know, through the majority of my early childhood. So I mean, I grew up into it, and that's all I wanted to be in the racetrack, and wanted to be out in the garage with Dad and all his buddies, and, you know, be one of the guys. I mean, that's just what I thought was cool, and so really that's how it all got started for me, was going to the racetrack and watching Dad.
Well, I mean, that's how a lot of you know, our guests have talked about that, and, you know, an uncle may have taken them to the racetrack, or their father, or whoever, and sometimes it's been, you know, their mother was a huge race fan and took them to the track. So I think it's important, you know, to take that into today's standard, is that, you know, get these kids involved, you know, and take your kids to the racetrack at least once or twice and let them experience it.
Well,
yeah,
we've had a lot of racers here, a lot of guests here that have been third generation drivers, and I actually, in the AMS series, I met a fourth generation driver. So, you know, it's just I think it's another way to honor not only the sport, but the spirit of family that we see so prevalent among the racetrack.
Right.
Absolutely. A lot of kids, you know, I mean, they just, I mean, kind of like me, which, I mean, I kind of went my own path for a little while, but a lot of kids, that's what they do, you know. some kids' parents play sport, play softball, this and that. So I mean, they naturally progress into they're going to play baseball and stuff. Some kids, they grew up watching their dad race, or their grandpa, uncle, whatever. So that's what they want to do. Is they, whenever they're old enough to get in a go-kart, they want to get in a go-kart or whatever they can get in to race.
Right. And again, that's important to get the children involved, because that's where it starts, man. If you can light that fire early, just get a little spark there. Fan the flames, man. It'll be a big deal.
So let me ask you a question. You brought up go-karts, and huge history for you and your family with go-karts and everything. When you're working with kids, and you've got young kids now, would you rather start them something smaller? And now, granted, I understand go-karts are fast. Would you rather start them in something smaller like a go-kart and then have them progress up through the ranks, or?
I think it would make, which there's always exceptions. There's some kids that it just clicks immediately, and they're consumed with it. I mean, for example, like Cole Falloway. I mean, the kid's got all the talent in the world, and I mean, he's one of the most dominant go-kart racers. And instead of going into mini stocks or Rusty Boat or something, I mean, his family, they're been around racing, and I mean, his granddad's probably one of the best stock car builders around, and so for him, it was almost a guarantee to go jump into the top tier. But for most kids and most families, I feel like that's probably not the right way. They should go, your go-kart, start, your novice, junior 1, junior 1, junior 2, junior 3,
right,
up until, you're running with adults, or, when you hit around that 14, 15-year-old mark, start looking into race cars if you want to continue with it. And so I feel like most kids should, or most people and families should slowly progress, and I feel like they would learn a lot more in, just ins and outs of everything, doing it slowly, having to do it themselves, and everybody can learn together, where not everybody has 50 years of resources like Falloway was blessed with. He has 50 years of resources, so he jumps in a car, and the second he gets in it, it's as good or better than any other car out there. Right. And so a lot of families don't have that option, but I think everybody learn together and grow together slowly through the sport.
Well, I mean, like I said, we've seen it a couple of times where people will jump straight out of a go-kart into street stock, modified, and I think that's a huge learning curve. But then again, if you're going to get your career started and you get some basics down, I guess, if you want to go kart racing, you get your basics down, try to learn how to race a little bit and get into competition, and then shoot for the moon.
Yeah, and if you have the money and the resources and stuff to try to make a career out of it, wanting to go to NASCAR, wanting to go to World Outlaws or, sprint cars, whatever. If you have the resources to do it, then you almost have to get them in at an earlier age, because NASCAR teams and, these big teams they're signing kids at 10, 11, 12 years old. And that, matter of fact, another podcast, one of y'all's competitors, littler podcast, I think Dale Jr. Download or something. I think it's Dale Earnhardt or something.
They ain't got a whole lot of people.
But he actually talked about it. They were talking about a kid, 14 years old, running at Nashville Fairgrounds, and they were talking about him. And they asked Junior about it, and he said, if you're going to make a career out of it, you almost have to make that jump, make a big leap, so that you can start getting, have a chance at getting signed earlier.
Right. Well, even with Junior's career, look what he had to do. I mean, he had to pretty much just jump right into ASA racing and move on up through into the Busch Series and different things before he got to the Cup Series. But, I mean, at some point you've got to get to that point where you got to, if we're going to go, we got to go now.
Absolutely. And especially in NASCAR and these teams they're not signing the local legend that's won every race for the last 15 years. That's 36 years old anymore. I mean, it's not the 70s, 80s, and 90s of NASCAR where you're getting these well-established people and just letting them, get a ride. You're getting, you have to have the pretty face. You have to be well-spoken. You have to be be able to be marketable before you can even get a chance.
Right.
Well, and that's just like when I'm patting my own back here, but when I was at Farmer City and talked to Justin Haley, Justin Haley's 19, and look at what he's done in his career, as young as he is, and and you're right, he gave a great interview. He's a charismatic young guy, and he is the face of that racing team. So it does make sense for them to get them in and break them in early and teach them how to properly represent the product that they're selling.
Yeah, I mean, the days of the guys, like I was saying, the days of the guys getting their shot after putting their time in is pretty much gone. I mean, the only one that I can really think of that's with a bigger team anymore is like Justin Allgaier, family ran team.
Right.
Raced ARCA, won championship, got in with Penske, ran their Nationwide or Xfinity cars for a few years. Now he's driving for Junior Motorsports and doing great. But I mean, it's the day that's a one-off deal. You're of 50 drivers that get a shot. That's only one that got shot that way.
Right. Well, again, I think it's important to, and again, you're right. There's a case by case basis.
Right.
And I think part of this is because the way it's progressed these days, and so much money's being spent, and of course what money does to racing, but I think that they don't want them to have all the bad habits from the dirt tracks or the your local bull ring asphalt track when you're going to be running at Daytona or Talladega.
I mean, to an extent. I mean, the short track racing's short track racing. So I mean, but NASCAR, they don't have, but what, Martinsville, Bristol, Richmond.
That's it.
I mean that's pretty much it. And so, but every lesson, I've always kind of thought every lesson you learn at every track, every lesson you learn throughout racing is, could be needed at some point.
Right.
So, bad habits, I mean, they're only a bad habit if you continue doing it.
Yeah. Well, again, what we were talking about a minute ago, and you kind of progressed with your dad there for a little while, and growing up as a kid. But did you start working the pits for him, or did you start helping other people, or how did you get started getting yourself into it?
Well, I actually I raced go-karts for a few years, and it was, to an extent when Dad wasn't racing, because by the time I got to the age of racing go-karts, and Dad, at that point he had gotten a pretty big sponsor, and that kind of expected him to field a car, 2 to 3 nights a weekend. And so I didn't get to race a whole lot, more or less on off weekends and stuff like that, or rain out and the go-kart track didn't, then I got to race. And so I raced go-karts for a while, and then by the time I got to the age of actually being able to help him, that sponsor kind of pretty much lost his business, family mess or whatever, and he didn't get to, he pretty much had to drag up and sell out. So I didn't really get to help Dad in the pits. I mean, I was there with him every week and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I did the go-kart thing for a while, and then actually a little funny story. Y'all were talking about 3rd and 4th generation racers and stuff. My nephew, who 3rd generation racer, 3rd generation involved in racing, he actually, the guy that I drove for, Bobby Jackson, I drove his son's go-kart whenever his son was with his mom and stuff like that. And I drove his go-kart for him, at a few select races, and I think we won pretty much every time I went out with him. But the first go-kart my nephew drove at Rockport was a go-kart that I sat in with him. So it's kind of neat, 2 generations of racers, one in the same go-kart at the same track, which it was reshaped and all that, but essentially at the same track. So that was pretty cool. But yeah,
it is cool.
But didn't mean to get off on a tangent.
No.
But
do you know us?
Yeah, we don't.
I've heard some of Nathan's shows.
Yeah.
He gets off quite a bit. But anyways, but no, and then after that, which I was real big into sports. Baseball, football, played mainly football, and so it wasn't feasible for me to be able to race because I was playing sports year round. Baseball in the spring, summer, football in the fall, and basketball in the winter. So I, kind of got away from racing, and Dad got away from racing for a while. Well, then a guy called Dad and asked him to help him on a race car. So.
That old shtick.
Yeah,
that happens.
We were so close to getting out. But anyways, Dad told him the only way he was going to do it is if the guy brought the car to his house and he worked on it in his garage because he wasn't going anywhere to work on somebody else's stuff.
No.
And guy brought the car over. Dad worked on it for a while or for a little bit, and then I think Dad he realized that Dad wasn't playing around. If his name was going to be on the car, we're going to have a nice piece. And then Dad actually ended up buying the race car from him for me. I think I was 14 at the time, and he bought it for me. And it was all right. We're gonna work on it the rest of this season, and then come out next season. You're jumping in pure stock. It's like, all right, let's do it. And then it sat for a little bit, and then we tinkered with it, and then Scott Brooks called me, and it was whenever they had the big Halloween race for the big Halloween enduro. It was about a week before that. I think Mom and Dad were actually on vacation, and he called and asked if we still had it and all this stuff, and basically asked if we were interested in selling it. And so while Dad was on vacation, I sold the race car, and which we came out ahead on the deal, but I sold, and that's pretty much where my racing career ended, or where I thought it was going to end. And Dad, he said, all right, if you're not going to race, then we're going to go buy some hunting land, and that's your racing. You're going to hunt, or we'll hunt. So that's what we did. We pretty much for the most part, got out of racing, other than helping like Paul Lehman back in the cruiser days. I know Dad spent a lot of time on that car. The year he won the championship, I think Dad might have pulled a few tricks on that. But yeah, we
statute of limitations.
Yeah, it's past now. Paul still swears up and down that it was nothing bad was on it. But anyways, that was the end of my racing, and for a while, and went through high school, all that good stuff, and
that's important.
Yeah, barely, but no, I was a well-known football player and everything else, and I decided after high school I planned on going to the Marines, and I pretty much dead set on it, and that's racing was completely done with for me. I didn't nothing, no interest or whatever, or I didn't think so, and was dead set on going to the Marines. Mom wasn't a big fan of it. I don't think Dad was a big fan of it, and Mom just wait a little bit more before you sign up. Wait, you never know what could happen. Just wait a little bit more before you can sign up. One day I was working at Golfland, I was on the go-karts, or working on the go-karts and stuff. Got a phone call Billy Ray Cartwright, the announcer on my football team. Random as could be, didn't have my phone number or anything. He called me and he said, "Hey, would you be interested in the job?" I was like, "I got one." 18-year-old kid, didn't, golf playing was a big time job.
Oh yeah.
And he said their NASCAR team in Central City is looking for athletes because the pit stops are becoming, getting so fast that, your typical old mechanics just can't keep up, and they're looking for mechanics or looking for athletes just to do pit stops. And, look at the phone, double check, and like, this has got to be a joke. I was like, well, yeah, I'd definitely be interested. And he's like, all right, well, meet me at Apollo tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. You got an interview. And I mean, realistically, I hadn't even really heard of Bruco at that point.
Right.
And I mean, which I still watch NASCAR and stuff like that, but I didn't know there was a team that close. And so I showed up. We went down there, and they're like, all right, well, actually, me and a buddy of mine, a guy that I played football with, worked out with all through high school, we both got called. And we both went up there together, interviewed together, and they're like, all right, well, come back tomorrow. You're going to do a fitness test to make sure you're not wasting our time.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And so, I mean, that's pretty much how I went from go-karts to NASCAR was through that. And I did that for a couple years or 2.5 years with that team, and then went on to Shelter Motorsports from there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to get into that. And I want to tell us about some of those experiences, because not a lot of people that come on have that type of experience.
Nope.
So we'll go ahead and take our first break, and we'll be back on the other side, and we'll go some big time racing for a little bit.
Sounds good.
Are you looking for a hometown barbershop specializing in the best haircuts in Western Kentucky? Master Barber Chad Thompson has everything you need to keep you looking sharp for not only your special occasions, but for every day as well. Offering a line of haircut products to take care of your hair between cuts. Walk-ins are welcome, and you're always going to find friends and neighbors at Chad's. You can find Chad at 10655 Highway 764 in Whitesville, Kentucky, or you can give him a call at 270-903-8183.
And we're back from the break, and just before we went to break, you tipped on it a little bit. We're talking about the Bruco days and Petrick Shelter Motorsports. Two different entities, but locally based in Central City and Whitesville, respectively. So, take it away back there, man. And how take us through some of the Bruco stuff?
Well, the Bruco stuff was kind of a blur because at first me and two other boys, Donnie Eves and David Colonisi, we got basically signed up to look. Here's your workout routine. This is what we got a schedule of basically working out. Didn't even touch the race cars for a good bit. And just learning pit stops. And, the biggest job we had was basically making sure that everything was ready for the actual pit crews for whenever they wanted to come out and do pit stops and stuff. And just hitting a lot of just rounding off a lot of lug nuts. That's the biggest thing about it was, it was nonstop, 5 on, 5 off, 5 on, 5 off, 5, all day long. Then go in and do a workout, and then come back outside, calisthenics and stuff or whatever, and then 5 on, 5 off, 5 on, 5 off, hang, and then and by 5 on, 5 off, 5 lug nuts. Hit all 5 of them, and then put them right back on. But and then hanging tires just nonstop. That's pretty much all we were there to do, was be tire carriers and tire changers.
Right.
And so that was the majority of the Bruco stuff I think that was in 2005, and 18-year-old kid. And then I think which we did a few ARCA races and stuff like that, and then we finally got the nod, and we I think our first race with for Bruco was actually Richmond, the Richmond night race, and the Bush Series then, Nationwide, Xfinity, whatever.
Insert name here.
Yeah, insert sponsor, but that was our first race, and it went great and all that. The first race we were supposed to pit for was actually for John Hayden, and whenever he was running for Premier Motorsports, we were.
I think we know that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's been around for a little bit, but yeah, John, we were supposed to pit for him at Kentucky Speedway, and we were loaded up, getting ready to leave, and had all our guns and everything. We're taking off.
Guns.
Yeah, pit guns.
Air
Pit,
guns.
Oh shit.
Pit
Shit.
guns.
I was
yeah.
gonna say, whoa,
But,
Cincinnati's a rough area, but dang, man.
But no, we were getting ready to take off and got a phone call. He got in Aaron Crocker's oil. She blew a motor and got in her oil, and he backed it. I think he backed it in the fence. And
Don't make no mistake, that's Ray Abraham's oil.
Yeah, yeah, his lubricant. But
Whoa.
but yeah, he. So that was our first race that we didn't get to do, and actually our first race was at Memphis Motorsports Park. Great track, loved it.
That's kind of gone by the wayside, man. It was a good track.
Yes, it was, and we were pitting for Timothy Peters in the Truck Series.
Right.
I think it was his first start for Bobby Hamilton Racing, and our pit crew coach kind of lied for us a little bit. And, we're real experienced guys and all this stuff, and they're like, well, this young up and comer, blah 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 blah. He goes down there. We get there, qualifying starting, and he goes out and he's towards the back of the qualifying order. He goes out on the first lap and is fourth, and it was like, and he goes down the front stretch and he's like, I'm sitting, or he's like, it's stuck. So everybody's like, he's going for the pole. He goes through 1 and 2. As fast as could be. It was like everybody looked up. One of those deals like, wow. And then he goes into 3 and 4. And you hear, he rolls out of the throttle, and you hear him get back in the throttle, and you could just tell that it was early. And it was like, oh, we're going to be sitting on the pole, our very first race that we're going to pit. And he comes off of 4, just a little bit sideways, hits straight away and loops it. And as soon as he was to the point of no return, he keys up, and we're listening on the radio, and he keys up and he's cussing like no other. He's like, I had it,
Yeah.
And so, but anyways, we did that race. It was a fiasco. Apparently the jack man we had lied, and he dropped the left rear tire came off. I pulled the left rear tire off, and he dropped the jack. No tire on it, and tire, and I was.
Comedy ensued.
Oh yeah, sparks everywhere, rotor straight on the ground. And of course jack drops, so Timothy goes to take off.
Hammers it and goes.
Yeah, he goes to take off, and it's just shire of sparks, and it was a fiasco.
That's not how that's supposed to work.
No, you're supposed to have 4 tires, and
it's important.
But yeah, and that was the first race we did, and then, like I said, I kind of backtrack.
Well, how did it go? How did the conversation go after all this happens? Now does everybody have to get called up before the crew chief, or?
I think it was more of a deal. Everyone was like, the whole team was in shock. Like, we didn't expect to be competitive.
Right.
Didn't expect him to be, setting the world on fire like he was. And so I think the whole situation, which, there was a lot of, if it would have went over the air, I'd say the team probably would have gotten a lot of trouble because there was a lot of explicitives, and if they were to air it, all you would have heard was a big long beep. But yeah, it was. Nobody really got in trouble. I mean, we just kind of, as soon as the race was over, got our money and took off and ran. Didn't want to be involved in that. But yeah, we were. But he was, Timothy, he was actually cool as could be about it. He was just talking about it with us after the race. He's like, man, if I wouldn't have spun, we'd have won this damn thing,
Right.
So that was pretty cool. It was, for the most part, my first experience being around a big time driver or whatever.
Right.
And so that was neat, but yeah, that was the experience of my first race.
Well, bad experiences experience nonetheless, because that's something that you couldn't have controlled. That's the jack man.
Right. It was that was, it was a mess because I think the jack man, it was his first time jacking as well, and I think he tripped and fell over the hose around the front of the car. And then he gets over there, and I'm not sure if he dropped the jack or if he didn't have it all the way, have the handle all the way turned or not. But yeah, car went up, car went down. He took off. Not all the tires were on. And, yeah, it was a mess.
Have to back it up. You go over the.
No, he spun. He was just spinning. He didn't go anywhere.
Spinning ain't winning.
Spinning ain't winning.
Yeah,
spinning ain't getting out of the pits either.
No, not at all.
Oh man. So, overall, though, did you progress after that, though, and go to several other events? How did it go after
well, after the after that first race, they were just, to an extent, just shopping us out. Like,
right.
we were going to ARCA races, truck races. I think we might even did some, like, below ARCA, like some K&N type stuff. And, we... just a lot of different little teams, mom and pop teams, they have to hire a pit crew because they only brought 2-3 guys to the track with them.
Right.
Pit crew mercenaries.
Or something.
Yeah, just kind of show up and play guys. Plug your gun in and take off. So, but yeah, that was...
Well, I guess for people that don't know, that I guess Bruco had their main pit crew that traveled with the teams, but then they had people that were coming up that eventually were going to take spots or replace, and that's a depth chart like on any other team, and you've got different people at that position.
Yeah, and which a lot of their guys were, they'd been there since the beginning, and I think it was 96 or whatever, whenever they started. They'd been there since the beginning, and they were getting old. They were getting up there in age, and so they were going to, they had to find some, young talent. They were still doing good, but at that point, Bruco was trying to go to the next level.
Right.
And, that was, that was their, they wanted to be able to compete, in which they couldn't. I guess they didn't really want to try to pay the money for college football graduates or whatever, and so they went to high school level and got the best they could get, and or I like to say the best they could get, but but yeah, and so I think that was their goal, and it worked. We which I changed for the 27 team, the Kleenex car, David Green, for a year or so, and then they started a ARCA team with Brad Coleman. He ended up driving for Gibbs and stuff, but started an ARCA team with Brad Coleman and moved some guys over to there, and they had some more up and coming guys on there, and so I got moved to that team, and that, which, and all my year, like in all the years I did at NASCAR versus ARCA was 100 times more fun than NASCAR. NASCAR was like traveling circus, where ARCA was a lot more laid back and stuff like that, and it was a lot more fun. I got my first win with that team with Brad Coleman, won at Kentucky Speedway. That was huge. I mean, it was one of the few races my family and stuff got to see, because they were a lot of ARCA races weren't aired. So it was, they went from seeing me every week, or potentially seeing me every week, to not getting to see me. And the Kentucky race came on, and then we go out and we dominated the whole race. And then win. They get to see me running across. We were, I think there was like 4 guys there or on the team that were under 20. So we didn't know how to act winning. So he crosses the finish line, all the cars pull off. If we didn't know what to do, we just took off running out to the grass. We're meeting him at the flag stand, or we're meeting him at start-finish line, and they were doing the, crew chief was hollering at us and everything else, and it was like we're going, and we got there. We're up there, he's trying to do his burnout, or getting ready to do his burnout, and we're up there, beating on the car and stuff. It was really cool, and then he, we all back up so he can do his burnout, and he kills it. And so we all laugh at him. Then we realize, man, we got to run all the way to victory lane now. Still with our helmets, and I had my knee pads and all that. All 3-piece fire suit on and all that stuff. So then we run to victory. And our crew chief's hollering the whole time, because I guess the race took so long that it was getting ready to go off air. So he's hollering at us, telling us to get to victory lane so that we can get the car in victory lane before
the TV time expires.
Before TV time expires, so we're all like busting it. He doesn't get to hardly do a burnout. We go, get to go to victory lane and stuff. It was just a neat experience. Being on national TV, and of course, as soon as we get back to the hauler, get everything loaded up, and I will say that is the absolute worst thing ever. Is after a win and all that, you're all jacked up, get out of victory lane, go through tech, turn around and look, and you still have a toolbox, a massive toolbox. You still have to tear down all your pit equipment and all that stuff before you can even. So you go from like the highest of highs to realizing, I got to do a bunch of grunt work. Crap, I got to drag this pit box for, a quarter mile, and
yeah, you can't just drive the hauler up to the pit box.
Right. So, that was just pretty funny. And, but yeah, that was pretty much that's where I ended my run at Bruco. I was on the ARCA team. I, did the limited schedule with Brad Coleman, and I think we ran like 7 or 8 races, and I think the worst finish, other than Salem, he got taken out by Billy Venturini on a restart, leading the race. Billy Venturini just ran over him, and
that happens.
Yeah, it was. He had him jacked up before he ever got the green flag. I don't like him anymore. But
you might listen to the show, man.
I don't care.
I bet he don't.
Yeah,
the opinions of Erick Wettstain do not reflect the opinions of the Benfender podcast.
But yeah, that's where I closed my career, or my deal with was with the ARCA. Philip McGilton drove for him the next year, and
that's a cool friggin' name, McGilton.
Yeah, he was that dude was a nut. He we fitted him for his seat, and he'd only run one ARCA race prior to that. They went, him and his buddies. Dude was loaded, but him and his buddies basically went and bought an old Cup car. That's when ARCA ran the old Cup cars, and they went and bought a speedway car from somebody. And took it to Talladega. We're racing. Didn't even really set it up or anything. Whenever we got it that was the car we ran at the first race. We got it to the shop there, and our setup man was flipping out because nothing was right on it, and he just went out and ran Talladega. He didn't run good, but yeah. And then after that, I went to work at Shelters right after Daytona with McGilton, Daytona and Lakeland, Florida. I worked with them with McGilton at Bruco through that, and then I went to work with John Hayden and the guys over at Shelters.
Well, I think, looking back at the episode we recorded with Billy Igler, and, not even just him, but the kids that we talked to at the Soapbox Derby, this area of the world in western Kentucky seems to have something special about it, about churning out talent when it comes to motorsports or, this industry. At Soapbox Derby, we had 3 world champions, Soapbox Derby drivers from this area. At one point in time in NASCAR, there were 78 Owensboro natives on NASCAR pit crews.
That's just the ones I could think of, or the ones that didn't have. There was a bunch more that had Owensboro connection, that didn't get mentioned.
So I mean, it's there's something special about this part of the world that keeps this alive.
I guess so. I mean it is a hotbed for racing, and I mean it's hard to believe the amount of people that have came from this area or went through this area to get to where they are now.
Well, and it is a pretty neat deal because we can boast that, and it's fell off. So after the last several years and things like that, we just don't have. Of course, we don't have a premier motorsports team here anymore, and we don't have Bruco here in Kentucky anymore. But, and I guess that people aren't working toward that. Coming out of high school and trying to get on with these teams, and I'm sure that the industry has changed as well.
Yeah, like right around the time that I was in it, or that I got started in it, that's when they started doing the NASCAR tech schools and stuff like that, in which, I mean, I didn't go through it. They talked about sending us, and then they talked to other, people that knew more about the school, and basically, I think it, with kids getting into it, or young people getting into it, they all went to the tech schools or NASCAR tech and stuff like that, and expected to be jump on a team right away, when realistically that school was to an extent just selling a dream that trying to make their money off of it. So now it's almost a point, to the point you have to know somebody to get in. And it was like that for me. I mean, I didn't know or realize I knew somebody, but that's how I got in, was because I was a good football player, and the announcer on my football team coached the president of Bruco in high school.
Right.
So that's where that connection came through.
Well, I mean, it's got to start somewhere, and
right.
and if somebody, I mean, that's a cool deal too. But it was neat how it worked out for you to just be able to go get that experience, And,
oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of kids those that age, even football stars or baseball or whatever, just aren't going to get that experience.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, it was a blind luck. I mean, realistically, if I'd looked at the number and not answered that phone call, then what would have happened? I didn't. I mean, it was, if I wasn't able to answer that phone call, would he have just moved down to another football player that he thought of or something? And I might have just missed my shot. So I mean, it was a luck deal.
Opportunity, man. It can come up on you when you least expect it.
Absolutely, and that was one of those things that it made me realize you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
And you could be doing something just off the wall, and the right person walk by and see you doing the right thing at the right time, and you get an opportunity that no one else would get. I mean, like I was hoping it was going to turn into something, but like we were talking about Evernham, we actually pitted for Aaron Crocker in the truck series at Homestead, and we were pitting, for Evernham, and Ray setting up on the box and everything else. And she stuffed it in the wall as usual, and
Hey.
As usual.
she stuffed it in the wall as usual. And but whenever they come down pit road to fix it, and we were going to see if we can get the toe straightened out and all that stuff, and a guy standing on the wall, like we had the grabbed the toe plates and stuff. A guy standing on the other side of the wall threw 2 tape measures at the same time, and I mean, blind luck, I reached up and caught them both, one in each hand, and it was probably one of the coolest things ever. Right in the midst of all this, right? Good catch. And it was like, hang on, which with a headset on, sometimes you hear a voice, and it was like, did I say that or did he say that? And
no rewind.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a neat. I was hoping, like, well, maybe he'll try to give me a job because I can catch tape measures.
That's right. I can catch tape measures in the pits all the time.
But yeah, I mean, that was a cool deal. I mean, there's so many little stories like that. I mean, I could go on for days, and if you brought some of the guys we worked with, or I worked with back then, I mean, we could sit here for hours just telling stories, whether it be at the track stuff, or
You better clean it up, man.
or after we left the track and I was 18 years old and they were taking me to bars and sneaking me in and all that.
Statute of limitations, that's all I'm saying.
And I mean, that kind of stuff was, I mean, it was an experience like no other. And then, like, going to shelter, like, once I went to shelters with John Hayden and stuff, I actually got a lot more responsibility, and John taught me a ton about the race cars, and I every now and then helped him set, would help him on setup plate and stuff like that, and really kind of found my groove as a mechanic at Shelters. And I mean, John taught me a lot, and I got to be, essentially, did all the front end, front suspension. I had to hang all the front suspension, all that stuff, and get it close so that whenever it went to a setup plate, John wouldn't have as much work to do. So I mean, Shelters is where I probably learned the most, but it was Shelters was a different animal, for sure.
Well, you can't beat a hometown team, man, and
Right.
to be able to learn things, and those guys had experience, and they knew. I mean, it's not like those guys didn't know what they were doing.
Absolutely, and I mean, John was there. I mean, most everybody knows what John's done and is still doing.
And if they don't, they can listen to his episode of the Ben Fender podcast.
Absolutely. And Keith Strunk, he won the ARCA championship with Bill Baird in like 98, 99.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only dude to ever beat Frank Kimmel for like 30 years or something. But
that was an accomplishment.
But he was their team manager, and like we had Shane Russellberg. He was with Mayfield. And went to I think he worked at like Penske's, Evernham's, and all kinds of different stuff.
Right.
And he had he told us a story about when Casey Kane went on his tear where he was winning everything. This one specific car that him and another guy, they did some trick stuff to the nose, and it had a big part of him winning,
Right.
being that dominant. But I mean, there was all kinds of guys like that, and we had a few come and go, go to other teams and stuff. And Mike Royal, he worked there. He was there. Not sure how much work he did, but we had a lot of guys.
Again, if you want to hear him say how much work he did, you can listen to his episode of the Ben Fender podcast.
And Bill Myers or Mars, I'm not sure how. He was one of the best fabricators I've ever seen, and put his heart and soul into everything that he did. He worked with me at Bruco. He's working with Casey Kane this year in the 95 car, and then moving to another team. He's been on tons of different teams down in North Carolina, and we had a great group of guys, and if you talk to most of us, we feel like we should have had a little bit more success than we did.
Through no fault of your own, right?
No, we had the owner's son / driver. We felt like his head wasn't quite in it as much as it was the following year,
Yeah.
or his last year he raced. But yeah, I mean, Shelters was a blast, and all the little stuff, and I mean, going to all the little podunk short tracks, Berlin Raceway, and we went, Salem. We won at Salem. The actual race, the race after Daytona, where Patrick almost got killed in a wreck. Justin Lofton spun us coming off of 4, and he spun, and he got hit in the right behind the driver's door, and by a car running like 170 mile an hour.
Wow.
And I mean, broke his back and all kinds of stuff like that. And following race was at Salem, and it was like a month later. And we come back and won it. I mean, dominated the whole race. Just I mean, absolutely put on a clinic. And
I don't think that it hurt that you had John Hayden working on the car.
I don't know if anybody can make a car go around Salem like John. What he's doing with Blake and what he did with Brett. I mean, Brett was running. When Brett was doing his ARCA stuff there for a couple years, after Shelter shut down, John jumped in with him. And Brett was always, bad fast up there, which Brett's great. Brett's a great driver up there. He gets around Salem as good as anybody.
Right.
And but yeah, having John setting up the car at Salem's probably had everything to do with it. But yeah, John was definitely good at that.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do want to ask real quick before we take a break is just tell us a quick about how the NASCAR race days go, or just the the NASCAR weekends, and how we talked earlier about it was a traveling circus, but just how crazy they are, schedules and things.
It's like to the minute. This is going to happen at garage opens at 5:30, and it's a mad dash, unload everything. Get your set up your scales, set up your toolbox, get your garage stall set up to where like it's your shop, and that's all. Everybody has different jobs. We would show up and like 7 guys, and we would show up and everybody had a specific thing that they were supposed to grab. Mm-hmm. It was down to a T. I knew what box I was grabbing. I grabbed the pit box every time, or the toolbox every time. I go straight to the garage stall, get it set up, and then I'm pulling the scales out while everybody's unloading everything else. I got to have the scales leveled perfect. And before by the time the car comes in, as soon as the car gets there, it goes up on jack stands. You're going through tech. They're picking apart the car. Then you set it down. You run. Hurry up and push it over to templates. You go through all the different templates, hope it gets through, and and then you come back and you're immediately going up on scales, double checking everything, making sure all your ride heights are right, everything before. And this is all, and no time flat before your first practice, and car's down. You're in line for practice 20 minutes early because you want to be the first. You want to get as many laps as you can.
Right.
And car every time. Like it was weird. Every time car would come in the garage, I knew exactly what corners of the car I went to check ride heights, check spring travels, and all that. And another guy was doing another corner, and then John would, bark out whatever change we're making. As soon as John would bark it out, if it wasn't on the corner of the car that I was, if it was a track bar, well, Shane Russellberg was doing that. So I wouldn't grab wrenches. I would, I was going to get the jacket, and then, or if we're going to do, if we're going to change this spring, I was doing it. Change another spring,
So you didn't really step on each other's toes.
Right.
You knew how you had to do it.
It was everything was very orchestrated and precise, and that was even at the ARCA with John. We ran our team like, just like we did at Bruco.
Right.
And but everything was to the minute. You knew exactly how much time you had to do, or you would look at, it's like, well, we probably need to make a gear change. Well, we've only got 13 minutes left in practice. It takes, we can make a gear change. Y'all were able to change gear in 10 minutes. So, and even with that, everybody had their exact job. And, even if this one guy, all it was pulling a cap off and pulling the axle out, that was his job, and he didn't stop until it was, or he didn't move until it was done. And a lot of that stuff was, I think that was cool how that the stuff in the garage, I enjoyed it as much as anything. You're working on the car and all that stuff, but just how fluid everything has to move and everything, just like with the pit stops and stuff.
Right.
Everything, everybody has a point they're supposed to be at all times. But yeah, it was like that, just everything to the minute, all the way up until race time. And which usually NASCAR was 2-day shows, a lot of ARCA was 2-day shows. But but that's just the way it went. You had a certain amount of time that you had to do everything in. Had to have everything done. You had to be in line. You had to be doing this, doing that, and it was a grind. Just because you would slave, and Wes got a little bit of experience of it this weekend with how hot it was. Well, that's how hot it was. Except we're up underneath the hood of the car. Every time the car comes in the garage, you raise the hood up. You're up, engine heat and everything else. You're doing all that stuff. Under the hood of the car is 140 150 degrees with the hood open, and we're wearing our heat sleeves. It would all but melt you down. It would made it real hard to drink beer afterwards.
Well, I think that if you're just a grandstand fan and you're watching these things, you don't fully, and I really didn't appreciate exactly what went into a race day until this past weekend, and I didn't do nearly the work that you guys did, because you had the training, you had your responsibilities, you had experience doing it. I was just trying to learn to stay out of the way mostly, and it's
hand tools.
and that's one of the things that Gabriel's dad said on the way home. He was like, working at nighttime, if I got somebody to hold a flashlight for me, that's great.
Yep.
So you're right. I got a small taste of it, and it's work. It is a lot of work.
Absolutely, and like the speedway races, which the speedway races, they're the big draw and stuff, but the speedway races were actually more relaxed than any other race, because there's only so much you can do. Basically, they give you the springs. There's not a whole, you got a certain amount of weight you can have in the rear. So, you can't, be pushing all the lead, changing where all the weight is in the car and stuff like that. So it's kind of what you bring to the tracks, what you got. So it was a lot more relaxed, but the templates and all that stuff was more strict, which which John did great. He loved to push the envelope, and we always ran good on speedway stuff, and we took a car, the last car we built, we which of course we didn't do the body, but we did everything else, in which we'd already heard that they were essentially moving to North Carolina, or shelters were moving to North Carolina and stuff. We built a car, and basically any idea we had ever thought of, it was like, we're throwing it on this car. We're going to show them what they're going to be missing out on. We took that car down there, and we were first run, in which we had tire rubs like no other because the fenders were so tight and everything. We had tire rubs like no other, and still go out and we were 3/4 of a second faster than the second fastest car, and then we get the tire rubs cleared and everything, and we just keep picking everything we did to the car. We were changing trailing arms and putting different different track bars and different, anything, changed the rear end, entire rear end and everything. And we did all kinds of stuff with this car, and it was we went out and drafted whenever they finally had drafting practice. We went out and drafted with 2 cars that I think the year before that team finished like second in the points or something like that. It was with Joey Coulter, but we go out and practice, and Patrick was third in line, and he's sitting there and he's telling John, he's like I'm like half throttle. I'm not even, I can shove these guys all the way around the track. John, of course, explicit, knowing John, and he said, pull out and pass them, and he did. Those 2 cars were lined up drafting, and we pulled out to the side and passed both of them and drove away from them, and they were drafting. They were getting a toe off of our air, and we were still pulling them. And it was unbelievable. The speedway stuff was just neat, getting to all the different, an 1/8 of an inch here on, in this part of the body takes off, gives us X amount of, a 1/4 inch more travel in the rear, gets the spoiler out of there, that speed. Every little thing was, just, the speedway stuff was fun for me because it was more about the car that we had rather than driver and everything else.
Right.
And I think it showed.
Well, man, that's just crazy to think about that, because it's different here when we just got certain, it kind of loosely goes on a schedule, a lot of times at the local racetracks, but it's still pretty cool to see how you got to experience that and how tight it was,
Oh, it was a blast. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I got a ton of memories and, just little stories here and there. Like, I'll never forget, like, the biggest ego killer I've ever had. 18-year-old kid. I was at Texas Motor Speedway, and I got sent to we were out on pit road, and I got sent back to the hauler to get another stack of tires or something. I'm pretty sure I was pushing tire cart, and I'm going, I'm running through the garage area, and I see this mob of people just running like straight at me. And a lot of them were, attractive females. An 18-year-old kid, chest puffed out a little bit, and I swelled up, and I was like, yeah, here we go. And then they got 5 feet from me, and it was parted the Red Sea. They went right around me. I looked over my shoulder, and Ryan Newman was right behind me. Like 5 feet behind me. And it was like, just like,
yeah.
Oh, ego killer, and stuff like that. That's stuff that I'll remember for a lifetime. And going to the racetracks, and a little tip for fans that go to NASCAR races and stuff. If you see a driver walk up to somebody that's not on their team and start talking and giving hand gestures and stuff like that, chances are they are not talking about racing.
Probably not.
It's the driver just at that moment. He don't feel like signing autographs, so the first guy, he'll wait for the first guy to come by, and he'll throw his hands up like he's going. His car's driving into the corner, like all racers talk with their hands, and he'll go up and he'll be like, "Hey, I'm just going to walk here next to you, and that way I don't have to spend an hour over there signing autographs." But what team are you working for? Blah, blah, and the whole time he's doing his hand signal, his hand motions like he's driving and stuff. And it'd be, insert a driver. I mean, I've had a ton of them, big names do it, and they're just cutting up with, just a regular guy, just cutting up like a regular guy, and talking to you, but at the same time they're trying to dupe everybody into thinking that they're talking about racing.
Right.
So just a little tip for the fans: if you ever see that, don't feel bad.
Well, Nathan and I have had to do that at Windy Hollow as well. I mean,
Yep.
it's rough.
It's
so,
rough. It's hard.
Yeah,
Time you have to do that for.
All of y'all's fans, and it happens.
I had to run up to the tower, man, because the mob was down there.
It's mostly Jimmy Westerfield just telling us to get out of the way.
Yeah,
that happens.
That's what it is.
But yeah, I mean, that's the bit. Like, I mean, all like the couple race wins and stuff that I was a part of was. I mean, that was cool. But the little things, the little memories, like at Winchester with working for Sheltra. The week before, Patrick had dumped Billy Leslie. I think it's Billy Leslie. At Salem, it's just a bad deal. Got loose off of two, hooked him, killed the car for Billy. We go to Winchester. We're fastest car there. I mean, and which Billy and them, they had good cars as well. And they just at Salem, they were like, we'll get you back, don't worry. Well, we're running like fourth, and John was spotting for us. He was crew chief from spotter stand, and Billy Leslie under caution comes out. We're running fourth, he's running fifth, and he hooks us. And if you've ever been to Winchester, they have the gate opening on the front stretch, like at the flag stand. And he hooks us and turns us into the gate, rips the right front fender off of it. Well, we're all, stacked up on the front stretch. John's hollering over the radio, back over that, beep, 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 beep. Patrick throws it up in reverse. Now, we can't see it. We're down in middle of 1 and 2, so we can't see what's going on. And all we hear is a car bounce off the rev limiter, and Patrick tries to back over top. It just a redneck ordeal. But anyways, it goes on, and it ended up tearing the transmission out of it. We at Winchester, we pulled the car in, changed the transmission, and only lost 18 laps.
Wow.
And we go back out. Billy's leading the race. We go back out, and we're sitting there, and it was like he gonna get him back. He gonna game over. So we're sitting there, and we go out, and we're like, half track behind him. It was like, you could see it every lap. We're gaining like 5-6 car lengths on him, gaining. Here we are, 18 laps down, leader of the race. Chasing down the leader of the race, and we finally caught him coming off of 2, and which ARCA officials are going ballistic. Everybody's going ballistic. We're fully expecting to be a big fight. But Patrick jacks him up coming off of 2, and I swear his back tires weren't on the ground all the way down the back stretch, and he carries him all the way down the back stretch, sails him off into 3, way deeper than he ever should have, and which somehow he saved it or whatever, and Patrick just pulls out and passes him, and just drives away. And we're 18 laps down, and it's like that was the point. That is like we're just proving a point that we're better than you, and and then I think John and their spotter got into it on the spotter stand, and I think that's when their spotter found out who old Haymaker is. And that was a mess. But it just stuff like that. If I went down there and I started talking, if I say one little phrase in front of John just turn around with his grin, and he'd start laughing. We'd go all back through, and you'll never, there's nowhere else I'll ever be able to get stories like that. And right. It was a blast.
Well, man, we're going to go ahead and roll into another break real quick, and we'll come back on the other side and get into a few more things there.
Sounds good.
Whether you're buying or selling a home, you want to ensure your needs are met. Lori Kimball with Home Realty Incorporated is the realtor for you. In today's fast-paced society, it's important to have someone on your side that will give you the care and treatment you deserve. Lori wants to build a relationship with you, and it's her full-service commitment focusing on your family's wants and needs that sets her head and shoulders above the rest. You can contact Lori today at 270-315-1468. That's 270-315-1468. Or you can find her on the web at www.lorikimball.com. Call her today to unlock doors for your tomorrow by building a relationship with a realtor who's here for you.
And back from the break here, and Eric, I want to talk to you a minute, how we normally structure these episodes and what's coming next, but we kind of get into, let's go ahead and talk about social media, buddy, and how it's been affecting racing and motorsports here in the last several years.
Social media is one of the best things that's ever happened to racing. To an extent.
That's different.
It is different. I like it.
Because back in the day, in order to get the word out, tracks would have to put they'd have to buy newspaper space. They'd have to constant radio advertisement. And that would be every week, every single week they had to do that. So people knew what was going on.
Right.
And there had to be constant, you almost had to have a constant word of mouth, a phone tag game for everyone to, find out that, hey, there's going to be a rules meeting on such and such date.
Right.
Or, hey, they're doing a big race on this day. Or the races are canceled. How many times back in the day did people show up at the racetrack and they had no clue, drove for 3 hours, had no clue that the races were canceled. Now, at any given moment, Jimmy could cancel, 30 minutes before the race, or, 30 minutes before the gates open, and everybody knows almost immediately. Same deal with all the big races and stuff. I bet if you went back and looked at how, the budget on advertising back in the day versus the budget on advertising now, even with inflation and all that, I bet it's less now than it was back then.
Right.
And at a moment's notice, like when we ran Rockport, we did nothing but social media advertising. And that was, we had a great social media presence, but that's all we did. And the first year we were voted number 4 track in the Midwest, and out of 300 whatever tracks.
Right.
And it was solely based on social media. And it does have some downfalls, the keyboard warriors and stuff, but I think to an extent, a lot of people don't even acknowledge a lot of the keyboard warriors, just from the standpoint, more often than not, it's a fan that's going to make themselves look stupid anyways by something they said.
Right.
It's somebody sitting in the stands that probably hasn't ever drove a race car and, hadn't taken a tire off the car they're cheering for. Right. And they're complaining about something that happened, and more often than not, just read what they write. You'll realize how involved they are.
Right.
And so, people just have to learn to ignore the people like that, and it'll continue being one of the best things ever, and not let it get out of hand. Because, who would have ever thought 25 years ago that when racing was in its peak, that with a few clicks of a button, I could send something to pretty much every single racer or anybody that might be interested in what I have to say.
Right.
From a track's perspective. So you have your audience immediate. And, just for example, how many tracks on Facebook do you follow that darn good and well you're probably not going to race at? It probably wouldn't be a stretch to say a dozen.
Oh, yeah.
So you know what's going on at all these different tracks, and you don't even have any, you don't have an involvement there.
Right.
So, but if that track, if you got to reading that track that you had never heard of or whatever, and just click like on Facebook, gave it a thumbs up on Facebook, you could read, they post their rules and be like, well, holy crap, my car fits perfect in this class. I can go run there.
I don't think I've ever said that, though.
I mean,
these days, we'll get to that later.
But I mean, I think social media is, which you have to take the good with the bad, but social media is one of the best things that's ever happened to racing, because you can reach everybody that wants to be reached with minimal effort.
Right.
So I think, there's a responsibility, though, not just as a fan participating on social media, but a responsibility from track owners, track promoters, drivers, people that are involved on that side of the fence, to rise above and not feed into it.
Yeah, that's the problem with, and everybody always mentions how it's killing the sport and the keyboard warriors and stuff, but the problem with the keyboard warriors is the people that come back at them.
Yeah.
Because if you give them no attention,
they're going to move on.
They're just the one comment out of 25 on this thread that looks, then they make themselves look stupid. Then they give themselves a bad name. But whenever you feed into it, so-and-so wrecked me, blah, or, wrecked my driver, blah, 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 he's a piece of crap. Well, if that guy never says a word, it all goes by the wayside, and everybody just looks at it as like, man, that person bitches nonstop.
Yeah, don't give it any legs.
But I think when we were interviewing Tim Banks talked about how he was approached to do a reality show for his shop and everything, and they interviewed him and everything. And he was like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't cuss, I don't do this, I don't do that. And the producers of the reality show said, something, we appreciate your time, but you don't have a TV show here. There is no drama that we can create out of your life. And a lot of it, I think, we are so invested as a society in the drama. You want to post the Michael Jackson gif of him, eating popcorn that says, just here for the comments.
And I've been guilty of it. And I will say, whenever, Windy Hollow, Cedar Ridge, Rockport, wherever, whenever somebody posts something, and then I see 50 comments below it, I'm going to read the argument.
No.
For
or against.
Yeah, I'm going to read the argument, and it's entertainment, but I also take it with a grain of salt. Like, that's somebody that, I could tell by the way they commented, the language that they used, they don't know what they're talking about.
Right. And
these people, the people arguing, proved that they don't know what they're talking about. But it had to get to a fight to get there. Whereas if you just let it go, walk on, then it's never a problem. And
right.
Which I do want to say one thing about social media, and it's like the going live at races and stuff like that. I think that's a great thing. I love the going live, because a lot of times, like, since Wendy moved to Sundays, I'm not going to go to a Sunday race. I've got to work on Mondays, and if it's not a holiday weekend, I'm probably not going to go. But I still want to watch to see who won, or who. And so going live keeps a lot of people invested in it and interested in it and all that. You can say that it doesn't help the track because people are getting to watch it at home, but I know I've seen many a times where a few times where it's like, oh, well, I ain't got nothing going on and they're starting heat races right now. I get there at intermission, heck, let's do it. And, I can do it that way. It helps that way. But please, 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 people, if you go live, if anything, give an update. If somebody sends you a question, who's leading, whatever, do that. Say, Falloway's leading, Driscoll's second, Macy's third.
Right.
But hush. After, I mean, that's all you need to say, because there's a lot of little kids. Like me and my little boy, we watch racing, I mean, almost every night laying in bed, which he's going to be mad tonight because I might not make it to bed on time. But, you know, so don't be on there screaming, yelling, cussing, all that. I mean, just thank you for going live. Let us watch the race. We don't want to hear you too much.
That's right.
No, we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
There's a not going to go deep into it, but there's a situation at Cedar Ridge where it was surprisingly that someone was able to go live from Cedar Ridge, but the person who was recording the video was mouthing about the drivers, and you don't know who's watching that video, and the fact that video is there later, you know, what's to say that the driver that you've just been bad mouthing isn't going to watch it?
Exactly, and for that matter, how do you know a sponsor of the, you know, because those videos get shared often.
Yep.
And, you know, so other people, or, you know, people get tagged in it or whatever, and, you know, it gets shared. You never know who's watching it. It could be a sponsor of the track, or could have been a sponsor. You know, it might have been Independence Bank sitting there saying, let's see what this is all about. I might want to throw $10,000 at this racetrack.
Right.
And then they hear somebody getting on there, and it's like, well, I don't want to be involved with that kind of crap. You know, I mean, so just watch your mouth and paint the track. I mean, with social media, everybody is now a part of a promoter.
Yep.
So paint the track in a good light.
Right.
You know, I mean, people want to complain about racing it isn't like it used to be, but then they don't want to do their part to make it like it could be.
Right. And I think that's what we run into, and I think that was one of the situations on that video. And then, you know, not only running down drivers, but also running down the track for whatever records they have or this and that and the other, and be like, you know, who you've got friends, and they've got friends, and they've got friends, and chances are somebody likes racing, right? And they click on that video and they hear this, well, I don't want to go down there.
Right. I don't want to take my kids to that kind of crap. And then whenever, you know, if it's a new person and they see a video at Cedar Ridge, Windy Hollow, or Peevely, or, you know, whatever, and they just check it out for the first time, not knowing nothing about dirt racing, and they hear that kind of stuff, at that point, all dirt tracks get lumped into that same thing, and that person's not going to take their kid to the racetrack.
Right.
Because they don't want their kid around that kind of nonsense, even if that kind of nonsense was somewhere out in Missouri,
right,
somewhere in Illinois.
Right. But don't bash your racetracks. That's the main thing. You're right.
Yeah.
Just keep your mouth shut. Go live, give your update or however much, and then just let it get back to racing.
Exactly.
And I think that there is a market for it. There really is, just like you said. You know, over the past weekend, raceanddirt.com broadcast all 4 races, the AMS portions of the races, on their website. And, you know, people were calling Gabriel, who were sitting here in Owensboro, watching the races, you know, from their computers and everything. So there is a market for it. So,
right,
you know, I think that if the tracks were to invest in it a little bit more heavily around here and do something a little more professional, then I think maybe, you know, that might be something that that might turn out well. So we need to help foster good opinions toward that stuff.
Right, and it all goes back to, you know, paint yourself, paint your track in a good light, and that's a start. You know, that's where that's what we all need to be doing as racers. I mean, yeah, you know, the drama does get entertaining, but ultimately, I'm a race fan. I don't go to the track to, you know, hoping to see people's stuff get tore up. Race fans come back. People that come for a spectacle don't.
Right.
And so, I mean, you go to Hobstadt, they show up to race. You know, no frills, no nothing. You're going up there. You know, I'm going to see hot laps, immediately qualifying, heat races. Then we're going straight into features, and that place is packed. Mm-hmm. And it's no frills, no, you know, nothing extra. You're there to watch racing, and you're paying $20 to get in.
Yeah.
And that many people are still willing to do it. You paint, if all tracks painted themselves in the same light as Hobstadt and put on a product similar, they're definitely, people are going to pay $10 to get into the, that track.
Well, this kind of, rolls into the state of racing.
Yep.
But it's all a machine. This whole deal is a machine. It's fans coming to the shows. It's tracks putting on the shows. It's drivers coming to the shows. And, if people continue to run it all down, then fans are going to be like, just like you said, I don't want to go there. So fans are going to stop going, and the purses are going to get smaller, and drivers are going to stop coming because there's not enough money to run. So
It's all relative.
it is. So that all being said, and I know normally Nathan, does the introductions for the segments, but what's your take on the state of racing in this area?
I think it's on the upswing, but at the same time, it's at a turning point. It can continue. I think in the next few years, it's going to be at the point, or it's going to either continue to grow and it's going to, grow good, or it's going to never get any better or fall off.
Yep.
And I mean, which I know that's kind of a generalized statement, but I really feel like the next probably 2 to 3 years are important for racing in this area. And I mean, it's something that, I hate to see it go, but at the same time, we all gotta find a way to work together to not let it go.
Right. And I think that's important because, and I think that's a different perspective than what we've heard.
We have.
And for the simple fact that you're right. I think we're right there. We're going up. It's going up the hill. But if we're not careful, we can slip right back down the hill.
And I think if it slips back down, it might not ever come back up because, with the way people are today and stuff like that, it's real easy to find something else to do.
Right.
I mean, so...
Well, attention spans and things,
Right. And I mean, so... But a lot's changed since, the heyday of this area, the 90s and stuff like that. A lot's changed since then, even like socially. In the 90s, men were in the garage.
Yep.
I mean, for the most part, and they worked on their own cars. They put their own ball joints in. They, stuff like that, and that was their daily drivers, So kids grew up seeing their dads work on cars. Not knocking the women, because I know there's some women that did it as well. But they saw their dads working on cars. Well, now, I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm not working on my own crap. Screw that. I'll take it somewhere. I mean, and
you're what's wrong with racing.
I am the problem. But
technology, though, I mean, computers and cars and all that stuff, it makes it
exactly.
it harder to work on.
Yeah. I mean, the average Joe can't, adjust the timing on his car without buying a computer to, and the programs to do it and all that. And I mean, to an extent, I'm not saying, fathers were bad back in the day, or I don't want I'm sure someone will twist this that way, but back in the day, men weren't necessarily expected to be as involved with their kids. I'm not saying they weren't involved, and I'm not saying all men were that way or all families were that way, but essentially, and whenever I was growing up, mom did the parenting for the most part, and I went to the garage to be with dad.
Right.
And I think that was the way it is for a lot of kids. And then, but now, at softball practice or cheerleading or, baseball, whatever, mom and dad are at every practice, or they're both at every practice. Whereas, back in the day, it was typically only, mom would take them to practice while dad was doing his man thing or whatever. And that was just the way socially our country as a whole was. And especially, in a blue collar area. And a lot of people don't look at it that way, but I think the actual social dynamic and, I think that has a lot to do with, kids don't get to see their dads turning wrenches.
Right.
And, even with the cars and stuff like that, like Wes was saying, the cars have changed. Back in the day, you saw 79, 80, 81 Camaros driving up and down the road regularly. I mean, I'm sure y'all did it too, play the car game when you go on a car trip or on a road trip where you and a sibling or whatever, and you both pick a type of car and you count every one that you see. Now you don't do that because cars last 10 years and you throw them away.
Yeah.
Whereas back then cars were fixed and rebuilt and everything else. Then you could see that, favorite car was a Camaro. I could go to Windy Hollow and I could see 10 Camaros battling it out. Of course, Dad will always want them, but but no, I mean, I think that's kind of what's made it fall off. But at the same time, we can. It can be improved, but it's like I said, it's taking everybody working together to do it.
Yeah.
And
well, I think you're right, man, and I think that it has changed, and it's just a different time now.
Right.
But I'm not saying that it can't be worked around, and it can't be, adaptive to what we've got going on now.
Absolutely. I mean, but. And I also think, which almost everybody on all your previous episodes in this portion has touched on it, rules packages at all the different racetracks.
No.
Clarksville, Windy Hollow, Cedar Ridge, now Nebo, Chandler. You've got, 5 tracks,
mm-hmm.
and a fairly close area. You've got 5 tracks, and you have 4 different rule sets.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, personally, I think the best move that could ever be made would be take a page from the go-karts. Go-kart racing's doing pretty great. Take a page from the go-karts. National rule set. Go to a UMP. This is because, I mean, let's be honest, the cruiser cars 15 years ago, cruiser cars had a passenger in them.
Yeah, they did.
So, and now they're the top dog class. And so every year they get a little bit faster. You're allowed a little bit more. I mean, now you can have wedge bolts and everything in them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how can you still call it a cruiser with
street stock technology?
With street stock technology, lockdown shocks and stuff like that. So, I mean, I feel like ultimately and which it would hurt for, or it could hurt for a little bit, but if you go to a UMP rules or a IMCA rules or whatever on your street cars and say, that way Jimmy and Richard, they're not making up the rules. They're saying, buy your rule book right here.
Right.
We didn't make it up, but this is what it's going to be. And to go along with that, enforce it to a T, to the point where people don't want to show up and push the envelope. Say this is
make them kind of fear the tech man again.
Right. I mean, I remember hearing stories about down at McHenry McHenry. The tech men were 2 great big old country boys that sat up there at the scales in bibbed overalls, and they looked like they're about 7 foot tall. And it was like, I'm afraid to cheat because that guy might. I mean, he might string me up from a flagpole.
That's
right. I don't want people to be afraid of people at a racetrack, but at the same time, if you're showing up right, there's no reason to be afraid.
That's right.
And words are hard. It can only benefit all the tracks if they're all running the same set of rules, because then that increases the amount of cars that can run at your track exponentially.
Yeah, I mean, the go-kart stuff, whenever we were promoting it, and I know Josh is having it happen, my track rained out. Y'all are 3 hours away. I can still make it by, and have about 30 minutes to spare, get my go-kart, get everything my gear changed. But that's all I got changed is gear. Maybe move a little bit of lead, something like that. No, but my go-kart is good to run at any of those 300-plus tracks I mentioned in the Midwest.
Right.
Maybe a different tire rule. But get on the same. Can you imagine if the guys up in Illinois were like, heck yeah, they're having a 1,500 to win down at Windy Hollow for Super Streets. 7, 8, 9 of those guys say, our tracks,
we'll go with you.
Our tracks are off. Let's go.
Yeah.
We'll go down there and run. Chase Estes, he talked about it. He goes up there and runs with those guys a lot. Or he has. And they're talking. They mentioned wanting to come down here and run, and they're like, "Wow, hell, I ain't got nothing my car doesn't fit in any category they have." So, get on a national rule set.
That's not a bad idea, man, and that's not for any specific track, mind you. It's just it's kind of for all tracks. That way,
right.
Just put them all in line. That way,
then you're looking at. Even if it was just Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky got on the same rules. How many tracks did they mention to you or were mentioned in your quick six the other day? Probably 10 tracks in Illinois. Well, if those 10 tracks and then Indiana was on the same page, whatever, which I know they're big in sprint cars and all that stuff up there, but if Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky got on the same page and they were all piggybacking, drawing cars off each other, what do you want to bet Missouri and Tennessee are going to say, screw it, we're getting in on this party too?
Well, look at it, we look at Eldora as kind of the benchmark track. Eldora is where everyone wants to run. So if Eldora's rule package was the same as Windy Hollow's, how great would it be for the guys that are here to be like, right, I can go to Eldora and I can compete.
And which I don't know this for a fact, but you look at Hobstadt. When was the last time a street car ran at Hobstadt?
It's been years.
So Helfrich's they have a great thing going up there, but you look at what they do. All the cars coming into their track have a national rule set. It's not, this is Hobstadt rules, we're going to do this for the modifieds, we're going to do this we're going to have our version of the sprint cars. No, they have a national rule set, and the night me and you went up there, how many sprint cars they have? It was like 35 or something like that.
Yep.
And they had 20 modifieds. So, and that was essentially a weekly show for the modifieds, and they have 20 of them.
Right.
And we've got other tracks that can't draw 10, and which they've got the same rules, but, look at what they've done. They don't, Helfrich they don't have a Hobstadt rule set. They have national rule sets, and their track's the premier track, and I'm sure it's a lot less headache for them. They don't have to sit there and think about what are we going to create for our rules this year, because we know people are going to want more.
Well, and that's big too, because with each of those national rule sets, 9 times out of 10 you're going to have, if it's a points race, you're going to have somebody there from UMP, World of Outlaws or whatever, and they've got their own guys. These are the people that this is what they do.
Right, and you can do that, and I'm sure if all these tracks started working together 100%, like to a T, and they said, all right, we need to get one guy that is going to be the gold standard tech man. He might not have to be that. We can have our own tech men for certain, for regular weeks, but we have one gold standard tech man that we get to bring him to the track at any given moment, and he lays down the law, and it'll take away a lot of it. A lot of the, we'll let this slide, we'll let this guy, you have the gold standard, and everybody's reading the same rule book, and this guy is tough as nails to a T, right or wrong, then you know at any given moment you build a car that you know is just over that line of illegal. You get thrown out. Well, man, I can't come back because they know my car's illegal.
Right.
And I think that would, which a lot of people would whine and complain because they would have to turn around and either build their car up or build their car down to fit the UMP rules or whatever.
Right.
But that car, how much does UMP rules change every year versus, say, local rules?
Yeah.
And I think that's a route that people need to go. That way, you can. Josh Harris mentioned it. You can build a car to run at a track for 6 or 7 years, and you put that big investment the first time, and then you just maintain that car, and you might be able to get 5, 6, 7 years out of it.
Right.
Because the rules aren't going to be changing to the point where you're having to put major investment into the same car over and over and over.
Well, Nathan said one time that we were talking about the difference between running at a local track and traveling to a different track and running, and he said there are times that he doesn't want to go to a local track and see the same guys run over and over and over again because he wants to see a different caliber of competition. So it might suck for the first year that a standardized rules package and a strict tech man went in place, but once the drivers saw that they were drawing more and more competition, so that way you weren't getting single file driving, you weren't getting the same show week after week after week, I think that they would respect it and they would come to appreciate the fact that it all was being done for them in the long run.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot, just in the messages, messaging back and forth. Ultimately you had with racing being in a, like I said, a turning point, you have to think bigger picture, long run, rather than what's best for me, what's best for next year. Because
right.
What's best for next year might kill you. What's best for 2019 might end the class by 2021. How many times? Super streets, pure streets, or super streets, pro streets, pure stocks. That's 3 classes that in the last 20 years have been gone. And every year, as soon as one of those gets gone, the class below it that 15 years ago was the entry-level class is now stepping up. If Cruisers goes away in 3-4 years,
what's Rusty Bolt going to be?
What's Rusty Bolt going to be? A Cruiser.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what does that say about your track what's your premier class? Rusty Bolt.
Right.
Make it simple. These guys set the rules for us. This is what it is, and let's go super street racing. Let's go, mod street or whatever they call it, the second level of UMP cars or IMCA.
Well, that's all good points, and you're right on a lot of things for sure, and I think that's just, again, we just have conversations around here. We can't force anybody to do anything, and again, we're not saying anybody has a bad product because they don't. Racing is good. I enjoy racing now, but how can we? It
can always be better.
Well, it can be better, and how can we gear it for sustainability? That's the main thing.
Right. So. Sustainability's got to be the goal right now, not because sustainability that gives people confidence. The guy that sold out 5 years ago that still has the itch to race. He still wants to do it, but it's like, I'm not getting into that mess again. Well, if he starts having confidence that I can build one of those cars, and the rules haven't changed, don't change every year, or they're not adding wedge bolts this year on a car that I just took my passenger seat out of.
Right. And you're totally right. It's don't. I think that's one of the things that we got to look at too is sustainability is the key. Maybe we're not, okay, maybe we're not going to be packing the grandstands every freaking week. But listen, though, if you keep these cars, and you've got 5, 8, 10 cars in your class, and you keep them the same, and you just keep them the same. Well, eventually guys are going to be like, okay, man, they've been the same for like the last 3 years, but I think I can, I know they're not really going to change, and commit to it.
And exactly. And imagine if Clarksville had those same they had those 8 to 10 cars in that same class every week, and their rules were the exact same as Cedar Ridge's. That's not a terribly long haul to go, Clarksville to Cedar Ridge.
Not really. So,
what if Clarksville rained out and those guys were itching to race? Tracks are, somewhat similar. I might throw my hand. I might want to take my car up Cedar Ridge. Well, now instead of having 8 to 10, if half those guys show up, now I've got 15.
Right.
And you know what? Say they go to Cedar Ridge and they say, man, I love this track. It's it's great. They put on a good show.
There's a fair tech man. It's a great show.
Then they might. I mean, not saying you want to rob from everybody else or rob Peter to pay Paul, but at that point you're starting to look at it as if you give the racers the options to go anywhere they want, they're going to race.
Yep.
Because they can, racers get butt hurt, and they get butt hurt often.
They do.
I mean, we all know it. I mean, that brings up some of the keyboard warriors. But you know what? If I got butt hurt at Chandler, I say, you know what? Screw it. I will never go back to Chandler. Every racer says they're never going to go back to the racetrack. They do. But, I got butt hurt at Chandler. I don't have to change a lick of nothing, maybe a gear, or, just a gear to go to Windy Hollow.
That's right.
And a little setup here and there, but I don't have to actually change my car. Screw it, I'm going to go to Windy Hollow if I'm that upset. Why not?
That's absolutely right, man. Well, Eric, we appreciate you coming on the show, buddy, and telling us some stories and doing some different things. And it's been a great episode, and we're glad we got to have the time to get you on, and you get to come on here and share some opinions. And I know we talk about them off the mic a lot. And, we just jaw and do some things, but it's good to get it laid down, and maybe we can turn some people's opinions, or maybe turn some trains of thought.
Hope so.
Well, I hope so too, because I want racing to take off and or to continue growing. I mean, whether it is can ever get back to what it the golden days or whatever you want to call them, whether it can get back to that or not, who knows? But we have anybody and everybody involved in racing has to start thinking long term rather than about the next season, because whenever you start getting all the racers thinking the same, and which it seems like from y'all's show, and y'all are doing a great thing getting the word out, getting people's voices heard. I mean, it sounds like all the racers do want that. It's just what it's going to turn into. What level do they want? Where they want to meet at, and say this is where we're going to be, and that'll be the struggle. But ultimately, if the more tracks you can get on board on the same page or on the same rule book, then that's where racing will really start to take off again.
I think you're exactly right. Again, man, we appreciate you coming on, and thanks for being a fan of the show and giving us opinions and things to talk about, because sometimes you do lend some, say, hey, you guys ask so-and-so about this or do this or talk about this, and that's a big help to us.
There's always an empty chair for you, whether it's on that side of the table as a guest, or this side of the table as a co-host or a special correspondent, or some other title I can come up for you. We appreciate you.
He's our own Les Nessman.
Sure he is. I was done. But yeah, no, I mean, we want you to be part of it, any way you can. So we appreciate you.
Well, I'm sure. I know there for a while I was rattling off stuff to y'all nonstop, like do this. I want to hear this. I want to see that and stuff. And I want to commend y'all and getting opinions. Asking. I know at one point y'all said Blake Shock was talking to you quite,
Right.
or is it maybe it's Carl?
That was Blake.
One of the Shocks. There's like 30 of them.
Well,
But-
I call him the Little Shock.
But I know they were.
The left front.
Yeah.
They were talking to y'all, and I'm sure they were, or he was helping, giving a lot of the same insight I was, or whatever. But yeah, y'all just keep up what y'all are doing. I mean, it's a great thing. I love getting to hear the stories, and whether the guys at work like it or not. And
Well, they're going to hear all about you.
they get to hear me talk enough at work, so I'm sure they won't want to listen to this. But
They're going to push pause on the Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah, they might just throw it in the hole. But but no, I really appreciate what y'all are doing, and letting me, even if it's a small part, being a part of it. And
You're more than a small part.
And but I'm gonna have to get out of here.
All right, Eric, we appreciate it, buddy, and we'll be back here in just a minute with the last segment.
Fairview IT Management is your one-stop shop for all your home computing needs. But did you know they are also one of Owensboro's leading business automation services, offering network automation, system administration, and remote managed support? Fairview IT Management can become your help desk to help you reduce staffing costs and keep your bottom line low. Give Gabriel Kirtley a call at 270-228-4339 for all your business technology needs.
Eric ran out of here to get home to tuck the little dude in bed, and he was like, I didn't think it was going to take this long. And I was like, are you kidding me, man? You've got you who love to talk and have opinions, and you've got Nathan who doesn't know when to stop talking. So of course it's going to go like 22 hours.
No, it did. It did go 22 hours, or 2 hours and about 15 minutes. But hey, there's nothing wrong with that. And it was cool having Eric on here, and no longer a driver, but is very much involved in the sport, and keeping it alive by supporting it and talking to different people, and especially getting the word out about us, which always helps.
But I mean, his experience is invaluable in what he's done in his career and his life, and it makes him a really important part of what motorsports is, because you get to hear a different perspective. You get to hear a different, opinion from a driver or a promoter or me as a media person. So it was important that we got to talk to him, and I do want him to be as involved in the show as he can be, and I want him to come back and talk some more, and do an episode that we've been promising where we get maybe him and his dad together. And have them talking about their stories and all that stuff.
Well, absolutely. The Wettstain family is that would be an awesome episode, and just to have him on and some, we keep talking about we're going to do this, but the roundtable episodes, and we just haven't got it all together yet. But
well, I mean, it's once racing the season ends, we're going to have a lot more time, and we're going to have a lot more flexibility to get things like that scheduled. So it's going to be a good thing, and I've always appreciated his opinion. Sometimes you might not necessarily want to hear the opinions, but as long as they're handled constructively and they're done in a manner that will benefit everyone, then they're good.
They are good, and opinions are okay. They really are. A lot of people are like, "Well, I don't want to hear your opinion." What? I mean, but just hear me out here. I don't
Right.
explain my position, And if you don't like it, you don't have to like it. It's not, if you do like it, then that's great. But
Sure.
Here's the thing. He's not opinionated, and just like we aren't. We just have some feelings on some things, and I guess you would call that an opinion, but more so we just have a feeling about.
He's not trying to shove his opinion down your throat. He's going to express what he feels. He's going to be honest about it, and it's a good thing. So
well, the good thing about it is too that Eric has never shied away, and he'll say what some people won't say, and that's you got to commend him for that too.
absolutely,
So-
and I just said that word you hate.
It's okay. Drink, everybody drink.
Everybody drink.
But no, it was a good conversation. It really was, and it
No,
needed
it was
to
great.
happen sooner than later. But we got him on now, and part one. But he's welcome on the show anytime. But I do love his stance on some of the social media stuff, and I do love his stance on some of the the state of racing stuff. I mean, he's correct. We are at a crossroads and at a turning point, and if we're not careful, if we're absolutely not careful, we're going to slip back down the hill into the abyss, and that's going to be it.
Right, and we all have to keep this thing alive together as a group. Drivers, fans, pit, chiefs, crew members, whoever it is, we all have to work together to maintain the sport. So
and we're doing that. I mean, we're trying to do that. Of course, it doesn't happen overnight, right?
No.
And it's not going to happen overnight. We weren't an overnight success. I call us a success, and if anybody calls us different, I mean, I just don't see what you're looking at, because we're looking from the middle of the pack at least, and I think that we're doing quite well, and I think we're doing okay, and I think that we're able to do this stuff because everybody is listening and people are starting to do what they need to do. You know what I mean? And sustainability, that's what we're talking about. And I'm hoping that we can make it great again. And we won't use the slogan. That was a short-lived slogan. So, but anyway, so make it great and keep us on the moving forward. Because he's right. We got to get some things under control to where we can absolutely be able to, keep these classes alive, keep these tracks alive, and keep different things going for all these future kids that are coming in, and even the veterans are still wanting to stay in the sport, but let's give them an avenue to do so because the legends aren't going to die.
Right, you're absolutely correct, and we hope that we continue to have input from the legends and help foster and build the next generation of racers so that we're able to keep this sport alive and well, because that's what we want. We want this to continue to grow and continue to churn out, great participants. So, let's just do the thing and come together as we need to, and just keep working toward it.
And also build some avenues to where we can, keep things sustainable. And, again, we keep talking about sustainability, and I know we sound like a broken record, but let's keep things going and give us some avenues to do so and maybe improve. Who knows? Maybe one day we can broadcast races or something. You never know. It could be a future in it. But we never know till we try. So,
well, and it's about partnerships. It's about what's important for the sport. It's about putting your ego aside. It's about just trying to do the thing that we can to make this happen. So,
right.
Who helps make this happen for us, Nathan?
Well, our sponsors on the race car and at the podcast are Fairview IT Management. We can't thank them enough, especially for giving us a place to do the podcast. And sponsoring the race car, Chad's Barber Shop, Glenstone Construction, Mach 5 Race Car Parts and Carts. It's like a lot to say.
It is.
And we did talk about John a lot, so he gives his due on this one. That's for
Agreed.
Sure. Martin's Towing Recovery, Red Star Graphics, Slingshot Media Group, Lori Kimball Home Realty, High Octane Racewear Graphics and Apparel, and Willie's Carburetor and Dyno Shop.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to find us on the net, you can find us at ConwayRacingTeam.com and also thebentfenderpodcast.com. If you want to find us on Facebook, that's Conway Racing Team. And if you want to find the podcast on the Facebook, the Bent Fender Podcast.
That's
on
true.
Facebook. You can find us at Twitter at Conway Race Team, Instagram Conway Racing. We got it pretty much bombed out all over the internet. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Podcast Addict, YouTube.
Yep.
So you can find us pretty much anywhere you want to, and we hope you would do so. If you're listening to us on the website, try to download it on your phone. It may make it a little easier to where you don't have to have a computer. If you want to sit in front of your computer screen and play your video games or whatever it is, you can play Fortnite and listen to the podcast.
That is a thing that people can do.
Yes, it is. So I don't know what a fortnight is, other than a monochrome of time somewhere in the past. So I don't know what Fortniters do. So I'd rather just play iRacing or actually drive my race car.
Just get out and race.
That's a good thing. So anyway, guys, we appreciate what you're doing and for us, and we hope you appreciate what we're doing for you. I know Eric does, and he has been very vocal about it, and I know that hopefully he doesn't think that he sounded bad, because he sounded great on this episode, and he did a wonderful job, and we're glad he did it. So, Wes, have we got any other business to attend to?
Nothing aside from plugging November 3rd.
Yes, November 3rd. Yep. Just keep that date. Remember.
Put it in your pocket.
Yeah, I mean, don't wash it in your pocket, because then you're not going to have it.
That's true.
Put it in your cell phone. November the 3rd.
Big alerts.
Yeah, just wait on it.
Yep.
Just put it in just plant the seed and it'll grow.
Yep.
And it's growing, so that's a good deal. So anyway, For Wes, the Iron Man Lou Allen.
Yep, it's me.
Next week, it's not going to be. I need to come something like smack you down.
Go ask Gabriel. He'll give you
lend us
some
one
of the.
next
Yeah,
week.
he'll give you one for next week.
Well, all right, buddy. I'm Nathan Conway, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the best up-and-coming motorsports podcast on the internet. Tune in next week to see who we're trading paint with on the Bent Fender Podcast.